Through that documentary series, I met a young woman named Claire Wineland who had cystic fibrosis. Claire became like a little sister to me. And one day after we were filming, I had asked her just casually, have you ever dated? Like, give me the inside scoop. Like, what's it like in a hospital? Have you ever like dated anybody with CF? And she was like, no. And then she told me that two people with CF can't get closer than 6 feet, or they could really hurt each other. And instantly I said, that's a movie.
Stephanie Jones and Blake Lively have been aggressively trying to overwhelm Justin Baldoni's legal team with multiple lawsuits, seemingly to distract from the weaknesses in their own cases. Their strategy appears to be to involve as many people as possible in suing Brian and Melissa, creating the illusion of a widespread smear campaign, one that in reality never occurred. One notable lawsuit filed in 2025 came from the surviving spouse of a former client of Brian Friedman. This client had previously sued Justin Baldoni for copyright infringement, and the surviving spouse claimed that Friedman had violated privacy, defamed Travis Flores, and committed legal malpractice. However, the statute of limitations for these claims had already expired. It's also worth noting that defamation claims cannot be made on behalf of someone who has passed away, as defamation requires the protection of a living person's reputation. It's a sad reality that you can't defame someone who's no longer here. Still, in 2025, the surviving spouse of Travis Flores, who tragically passed away from cystic fibrosis, filed a lawsuit. At first, it seemed strange. What were the chances that they would sue entirely on their own, without prompting? But then I remembered a text exchange between Brian Reynolds and a WME representative, noting that they had been hearing complaints from people who had worked with Justin Baldoni, suggesting he had caused issues in the past. Suddenly, it felt less coincidental when Flores's surviving spouse moved to sue Brian Friedman so quickly. When the lawsuit was filed, I mentioned that I didn't think it had much merit. It's heartbreaking for the surviving spouse, and I truly feel for them. At the same time, it seems possible they may have been influenced by Lively or someone nudging them to believe this was a good idea. Brian Friedman responded to the defamation and breach of contract claims by providing evidence, including a copy of the settlement agreement from when he represented Travis Flores in the copyright infringement case against Justin Baldoni. The documentation showed that Brian had minimal direct contact with Baldoni. Most communication went through CBS, as the project involved CBS, Lionsgate, and Wayfarer Studios. The 1,500 pages of materials demonstrated that the screenplay in question bore no meaningful similarity to Flores's work, and the claim that Baldoni had accessed Flores's script was unfounded. As a result, in January, Brian filed a motion to strike under California's anti-SLAP laws, essentially arguing that the case lacked merit and was an attempt to silence him through litigation. Most of these claims are barred by the statute of limitations. They stem from speech and conduct related to judicial proceedings and involve issues of public interest. Privacy and defamation claims cannot be asserted by a descendant's estate. Defamation cannot be claimed for someone who is deceased. Likewise, the invasion of privacy claim fails because no private information was actually disclosed. Brian Friedman did not even speak Travis Flores's name when asked about the case. Additionally, his statements are protected by the absolute fair report and litigation privileges, which shield him from liability for comments made to the media. The contract, fiduciary duty, and malpractice claims also fail. First, these claims incorrectly assume that Friedman represented both Flores and Baldoni simultaneously, which he did not. His later representation of Baldoni was unrelated to the Flores matter, and he did not disclose any of Flores's confidential or attorney-client privileged information. Furthermore, because the contract, malpractice, and fiduciary duty claims are partly based on alleged public statements about Flores's character, they fall under defamation, which, as noted, cannot be claimed posthumously. In response, Friedman submitted a declaration that is quite revealing. He explained that after the Flores litigation was filed, the defendants clarified that they never had access to Flores's script and that 5 Feet Apart was independently created. On October 18, 2021, David Grossman Choir, counsel for CBS Films, Lionsgate Entertainment, Wayfarer Entertainment, and Justin Baldoni in the Flores case, sent a detailed letter confirming that his clients had no access to Flores's script and independently created 5 feet apart. The letter also highlighted Baldoni's charity work. A true and correct copy of that letter was attached. Following receipt of that letter, the defendants in the Flores litigation produced documents supporting their independent creation and lack of access claims. Ambry Genetics Corporation produced nearly 1,500 documents, none of which indicated that Ambry had shared Mr. Flores's script with any third party, including Justin Baldoni. These materials were not available to either Mr. Flores or me prior to the Flores litigation. After multiple stipulations to extend the response deadline and time to review the evidence, Ambry moved to dismiss the complaint for failure to state a claim. On March 9, 2025, the parties in the Flores litigation entered into a non-confidential settlement agreement that resolved all claims, a copy of which was attached. I first met Justin Baldoni in late December 2024, more than 2 years after the Flores litigation had been dismissed. A few days later, Baldoni retained me and my firm as his counsel in a separate litigation involving Blake Lively and others. The Flores litigation and the Lively-Baldoni litigation were entirely unrelated. In January 2025, media outlets covering the Lively-Baldoni case sought comment on the publicly known fact that I had previously represented Mr. Flores against Baldoni in 2021. I responded with a statement that did not mention Mr. Flores, nor did it rely on any confidential information obtained from him. My statement summarized the non-confidential terms of the Flores settlement and included information obtained from the defendants during that litigation, not from Mr. Flores. It also referenced publicly known aspects of Baldoni's charity work, including his production company Wayfarer Entertainment establishing a charitable foundation. A copy of that statement was included as Exhibit 3. I am also informed that on January 30th, 2025, Clement, understood to be Mr. Flores's surviving spouse and the administrator of his estate, requested a copy of his legal file from the Flores litigation. My office provided a thumb drive containing approximately 635 megabytes of data, including pleadings, documents, correspondence, invoices, agreements, and electronic communications. Clement acknowledged receipt on February 14th. Of the 236 emails included, 175 were communications with opposing counsel. At no point did I or my firm ever represent Clement personally, nor did we concurrently represent Mr. Flores and Justin Baldoni. The statement alleged to be defamatory merely summarized public or non-confidential information obtained through proper channels in the Flores litigation. It was clear that Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Entertainment did absolutely nothing wrong, and there was no liability on their part. As a result, the case was closed with no findings of liability for Justin, Wayfarer, or any other defendants. This only reinforced my view that Justin and Wayfarer are highly ethical and honorable. Importantly, nothing in any statement I made referenced Travis Flores personally. I did not comment on his personality, character, or ethics. I simply stated the facts of the case. The letter cited by the opposing party came from CBS and Low, confirming that they had thoroughly investigated the claims in the complaint. Their findings established that Travis Flores's work was not copied. Instead, the film was inspired by Claire Wineland, a cystic fibrosis patient featured in Wayfarer's web series My Last Days. Neither Justin Baldoni nor the film's screenwriters had any knowledge of, nor access to, Flores's screenplay. The complaint speculated that Baldoni may have obtained access through an individual named Caleb Remington, but documentary evidence proved that Baldoni and Remington did not even meet until after the first draft of the screenplay was completed. That draft already contained virtually all elements of the film that the complaint claimed were similar to Flores's screenplay. This evidence conclusively demonstrated that the film was independently created, and no element of Flores's work, protected or otherwise, was copied. A review of both works confirmed there was no legally recognizable substantial similarity. Any minor similarities arose simply because both stories centered on teenage characters facing serious illnesses, such as cystic fibrosis, and included stock elements common to teenage romance dramas. Claire Wineland, the real-life inspiration for the film, tragically passed away in 2018 after complications from a double lung transplant. Baldoni met her while working on My Last Days, which was produced in collaboration with the Clarity Project, an educational group supporting people with terminal illnesses. Impressed by her charisma and energy, and inspired by her YouTube videos chronicling her hospital stays and treatments, many of which had millions of views, Baldoni developed the idea for a film portraying the experiences, struggles, and emotions of a young cystic fibrosis patient. The main character, Stella, reflects the challenges and drama faced by such patients, grounded entirely in real-life inspiration rather than Flores's screenplay. Justin Baldoni also actively supported Travis Flores in the past. He helped raise funds for Flores's medical needs, featured him on his television series My Last Days, and offered personal support when Flores was struggling. Whatever Flores's motivations are for this recent change of heart, there is no legitimate legal basis for his claims. The facts make it clear that there was no good faith reason to assert that Baldoni or anyone involved in the film took his ideas to create the movie. A comparison of the screenplays further confirms the differences, showing no copying occurred. Supporting evidence, including emails, demonstrates that Baldoni did not meet the individual cited in the complaint until April 2017, long after key elements of the film had already been created. A copy of the settlement from the Flores litigation also reinforces that all claims were resolved without liability. The settlement agreement in the Flores litigation was not confidential, and no NDA bound either party. Both sides agreed to hold each other harmless and waive any future claims, essentially a mutual "we won't sue each other" arrangement. It was a voluntary agreement with no admission of wrongdoing. The parties expressly denied all liability, and nothing in the agreement should be interpreted as conceding any fault. Flores participated of his own free will, without coercion, and the settlement fully resolved all claims. Interestingly, there was minimal direct communication between Flores and Justin Baldoni. Most interactions occurred through their attorneys. On January 22, 2025, Daily Mail reporter Deidre emailed Melissa Nathan, Brian Friedman, and Jennifer Arell requesting a comment regarding a U.S. Weekly story. The article noted that Baldoni's attorney had previously represented another client against him in a 2020 lawsuit over alleged copyright infringement and breach of contract regarding the 5 Feet Apart script. The lawsuit had been dismissed, and the reporter asked if there were additional details to include. Jennifer Arell responded on behalf of the team, copying Melissa Nathan and Brian Friedman, but not Jonesworks. The response included a statement from Brian Friedman emphasizing that Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Entertainment did nothing wrong and bore no liability. The case was resolved entirely without fault, further confirming Baldoni and Wayfarer's professionalism and ethics. Meanwhile, on January 30, 2025, Flores's surviving spouse contacted Friedman's office to request a full copy of the legal file. The timing raised questions about a potential conflict of interest and the possibility that the surviving spouse may have been taken advantage of. To be clear, this response is not intended to criticize Travis Flores or his spouse. It simply lays out the facts. The evidence shows that the two screenplays were entirely unrelated. The settlement was not a payout or admission of wrongdoing. It was a resolution based on the facts, supported by documentation and Friedman's statements. The hope is that when the court reviews the motion to dismiss in May, the surviving spouse will understand that the guidance they received may have been misguided. Those advising them, whether Blake Lively, Stephanie Jones, or others, appear to be pursuing a course that is both unnecessary and potentially harmful.
Continuing to push this lawsuit only underscores how baseless it is and makes those involved look increasingly unreasonable. The evidence is clear. The two works have nothing in common, and the case lacks any legal merit.